Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, partnering with donors from all walks of life to improve southeastern Virginia through grants, scholarships, and leadership initiatives. Learn more at hamptonroadscf.org.
Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Hamley. The goal, deport 1 million undocumented persons from the United States this year. According to Homeland Security, in the first quarter, more than 271,000 have been removed, a significant number of them from Mexico and northern Central America. Frequently, there are news stories about Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, making arrests where people work, shop, or worship. There is fear and concern within the Latinx community. Up next on Another View, the impact of ICE in Virginia and how the community is responding. Stay tuned. Another View will be right back after this national, regional, and local news from NPR and WHRO News.
Discussing today's topics from an African-American perspective, this is Another View.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Hamley. You've seen the news coverage in major cities like Los Angeles and Chicago, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE agents wearing masks, stopping and or arresting people they believe are undocumented persons. It's causing major disruptions to the lives of people in immigrant communities who are afraid to go to work, to go to school, or to go out to worship. And it's happening here in Virginia. Here to help us understand what's happening on the ground in our community is Patricia Bracknell. She is CEO of the Chamber for Hispanic Progress. Hello, Patricia. How are you?
Hello, Barbara.
Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Sheriff Gabriel Morgan, Sheriff of the City of Newport News. Hello, Sheriff. How are you?
Hello, Barbara. How are you?
Thanks so much for joining us. And joining us by phone is Elizabeth Schmelzel, an immigration attorney with the Legal Aid Justice Center. Elizabeth, how you doing?
So well. Thank you for having me, Barbara.
Good. Thank you for joining us. So before we get into a whole conversation, and we've been having a great pre-conversation, as we tend to do here at Another View. Elizabeth, I want to start with you because I want to define some language, because I want to make sure that we are one, being accurate, and two, being respectful as we talk about this issue. So can you give us just a quick definition of immigrant, undocumented, and migrant?
Oh, great question, Barbara. So this is really important because the language that we use gets really mixed up all the time. And I think there's some other terms worth talking about.
Okay.
Undocumented doesn't really have a clear legal definition. And so it gets cast as a really wide net. It can mean people who have come into the country and evaded all contact with immigration. To some people, that's what undocumented means.
Okay.
It can also mean people who are still in the process of obtaining their documents, say an asylum application that is still pending and might be pending for many years. They don't have a lawful status here, but they do have the right to be in that process. So when people say undocumented to include asylum seekers, I actually think that that might be a little bit unclear or inaccurate because they are here pursuing their right to seek asylum, which is something they are entitled to under our statute. So that's sort of a major issue right away is who are we talking about when we say undocumented people?
Right,
and I think it depends on who you ask. There's also differences between a refugee and an asylee. An immigrant, someone who has immigrated lawfully and has a more permanent status, might be a green card holder. And so all of those labels that we use very casually can actually have really specific meaning under the law that gets very muddied in the way we talk about it.
Okay. And so what about migrant versus immigrant? Are they the same or different?
So migrant tends to be a colloquial term. It's not a term of art in the statute. It means, just someone who is moving from one place to another.
Gotcha.
We use that from people like me who migrated to D.C. from St. Louis.
Right.
But it doesn't really have a legal meaning. Someone who is an immigrant tends to mean they have some type of immigrant status. So they're not a citizen, but they have some other type of status that allows them to be here.
So why is it offensive to call an undocumented person an illegal immigrant or an illegal alien?
Well, alien, unfortunately, is a historical term that the statute has used. And when I say the statute, I'm talking about the Immigration and Nationality Act, which is the big immigration law that governs basically all of what I do. And that language was written into the statute. It's written into our regulations. I think that the reason it's language I choose to avoid is because of the history of our immigration legislation in the United States. So some of the very earliest legislation that was passed in this country about who can become a U.S. citizen was based on race. So in 1790, we had the Naturalization Act, and that law specifically said that foreigners who are free and white and have lived in the United States, they can become citizens. We have the Chinese Exclusion Act, which barred Chinese people from enjoying the full scope of naturalization and citizenship. And so the language of alien, to me, conjures up a very racialized history of exclusion. And so that's one reason I choose not to use it. I also think an alien is not a person. An alien is a critter from outer space in the movies. And so why we would use that to describe, our fellow human beings is curious to me.
So, Sheriff, ICE, it is illegal, and Elizabeth, chime in with if I say this incorrectly, but the law says that ICE cannot use racial profiling to determine who they're going to pick up, who they're going to arrest, and so forth, or who they determine may be an undocumented person. But they are showing up in places where people of certain ethnicities work and worship, where they go to school, where they, where they're trying to live their lives. So how do you differentiate between what they're doing and the law that says you can't discriminate?
Well, first, Barbara, that's a very good question. I have some real problems with how they're executing their duties. I speak about law enforcement being the tool of bias. If we look at civil rights and we think about Bull Connor, the Edmund Pettus Bridge, people were legally doing what they were allowed to do, and that is marching to a polling place. They were assaulted for no other reason other than the system said, you can't, or we're not going to allow it. Not because it was legal. And law enforcement was used as a tool. We have worked hard in law enforcement over the years to build trust with communities, to show the community that we're not there to oppress, we're there to protect. And when you look at some of the tactics that are being used, unequivocally, racial profiling is one, which by law we're not supposed to do in America. And just because someone may be undocumented, that shouldn't be justification for using racial profiling. The other thing is, when law enforcement is involved, we should always present the facts, present documentation if we are going to execute a warrant of some sort. And also, even if we have an encounter, we should be at a point where the encounter is reasonable because of probable cause or reasonable suspicion that a crime has been committed. When you look at me, what do you see? You see someone who presents as an African-American man. So, do I present as I'm Latino?
Possibly.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because Latinos is an ethnicity. You could be white, You could be black, you can be Chinese, you can be all kinds of things and also be a Latino.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Patricia, so as we hear, and Sheriff Morgan, I'm going to come back to you in a little bit to talk about kind of the relationship between the Sheriff's Department and the Latino community, and also with your relationship with ICE, because I think that that's an important thing. But I want to kind of set from you, Patricia. You're on the ground with the community all the time. You're an advocate.
Daily,
You're out there daily. What's the conversation? What are people saying about what's happening in this country right now in terms of immigration?
Well, Barbara, first of all, it's an everyday change, right? As we know, this administration is putting out new changes every day. So the reaction, it's constant. The trauma gets moving. It's not like they've dictated one change and they're going through the process when something else changes. So what's happening in the communities right now is isolation. People are isolating. They're not going to appointments. They're not going to medical appointments. They're not going to life critical events. Works is changing. Now some of the parents are changing their pattern of living. One where it was a household of two working, now it might be just one working because they're afraid that the other one get taken, and then who would the children stay with? So we constantly, myself, take the phone calls and work with them by helping them to have a plan. Helping them, what does the plan look like? I'm constantly in contact with
literally
immigration
families
attorneys.
are talking about what they're going to do if they were to be detained by ICE,
yes,
or if
it's a conversation that we have on our social media with them as we talk and put out things on how to prepare for events, because a lot of them, they're taxpayers, they buy houses, they're part of the economy, of part of the culture that we are familiar with on a daily basis. So, what happens if you own a home and you're taken? What happens to your vehicles that you're paying when that happens? So we have that conversation while we deal with some emotional trauma. We also deal with the economy portion of it, and we deal with the necessities of education. We are now starting a campaign on our website that is giving options to some of these kids that they're not documented, to take some of these classes online, where the minimal. So we are looking for solutions daily as we see the need arising.
So Elizabeth, when do you start seeing people as an immigration attorney? Mm-hmm. At what point, where are they kind of in the process when you get involved?
So it varies quite a lot. Some people have been in the United States not very long at all, and they want to understand how they could seek asylum. Mm-hmm. So I have some folks who have been here only a few months, and they're starting the process pretty much at the beginning. Maybe they have passed a screening interview at the border, and then they move to Virginia and find their way into my office. Mm-hmm. Other folks I never meet until, unfortunately, they have contact with ICE. For a variety of reasons, as Sheriff Morgan pointed out, and I get a call from detention, and so we'll start the relationship there. Some of those folks who are detained have already begun their immigration process by themselves without a lawyer, and then they find themselves in detention. Some have not. So it really depends. We see people at all stages of the immigration process with all levels of applications pending or not.
Elizabeth, when I read stories and I hear of people who have been waiting 20 years, 15 years, 30 years for their asylum hearings and so forth, what's the problem? Why does it take so long?
That's a great question, Barbara, and it's really important for the public to understand because this is about resource allocation. So there are two big agencies in the United States that can decide asylum claims. One is called USCIS, and the backlog at USCIS right now is 1 million. The other agency that hears asylum cases is the Immigration Court, and the backlog of cases before the Immigration Court is 3.6 million. So that is why these cases can take so very long. Additionally, our asylum statute, our immigration law, does not afford people the right to a free attorney the way the criminal system does. So people get caught in this system, not understanding its complexities, and that ends up or can end up causing delays. It can also end up causing wrongful deportations. But in addition, the resources that we see being pumped into the immigration system now don't actually help with some of the other things going on. So in recent months, actually in July alone, there were 17 immigration judges summarily fired without cause across something like 10 states. And since the Trump administration has started, we are down 100 immigration judges.
So
Mind
that just makes the backlog even bigger because there's
Exactly.
nobody
So
to hear the cases.
there's nobody to hear the cases, and that's why you have wait times of 4, 5, 6, 10 years.
So, and if just so, because I'm trying to let people who are not experiencing this right now understand why this is such a critical issue. If you are in the process and you start the process for your asylum, you I guess get notification, or you have to show up so often to check in while you're waiting for your hearing.
Yeah.
Is that correct? And at any point during that time, between the time you apply and the time they finally hear you, the country has the right to say you have to go. Is that right?
So they do not have the right to deport you if you have
Okay.
a pending asylum application.
Okay.
They do, however, very easily. There are some exceptions to that. If you've been here only a short amount of time, you can be fast-tracked for removal. But if you've been here more than 2 years and your asylum application is simply pending, you can't be deported. You can, however, be detained. And that's what we're seeing. In fact, NPR, just I believe on July 3rd, published an article saying that the biggest jump in detention numbers are for people with no criminal histories.
Yeah.
So
that's what I was
these are folks just being arrested and detained. Many of them have already started the process. Their case is moving slowly, but it is moving, and they're just being subjected to detention sort of for the sake of it. And that is a huge problem. It's also a huge resource constraint. It is very expensive to detain people, and that is, but that is permissible under the law, that people can be detained.
757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call to join our conversation. We'd love to hear from you if you have had any experience with ICE or with being in the system in terms of gaining seeking asylum. Give us a call and let us know what it's been like for you. 757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. So, Sheriff Morgan, you are known as kind of an outlier, I understand.
So I've heard.
So you've heard about the relationship that you have with ICE, and in terms of holding those who have criminal charges behind them. Can you explain a little bit about what it is that you're doing that's a bit different than maybe some of the other sheriffs around the state?
I can't speak for the other sheriffs,
Okay.
but what I can do is tell you that I follow the law. I follow the law and I follow the Constitution. The first thing is the law says that for me to hold someone legally, I have to have some sort of a judicial review. Okay. So as a law enforcement officer in Virginia, I can arrest you without a warrant because of probable cause. And I have to take you to a magistrate, which is an impartial judicial officer. I have to explain to the magistrate why I believe a law was committed and why you may have committed that crime.
Okay.
The magistrate has to find that there was probable cause, that you did that, and then, of course, the magistrate can say you can be held. So that's
the law.
That's our jurisprudence.
Okay.
The ICE detainer is a request from an ICE officer to a locality to say, hold Patricia. That's all it is. It says, please hold Patricia. We want her. It doesn't go through a judicial review. And in the federal system, ICE officers can issue a detainer. And in the federal system, that'll work. In our system, unless you are empowered to enforce federal immigration laws, it has no place for us. It's a request. That's all it is. So when the president was in office the first time, this whole issue blew up again. And I was actually the president of the Virginia Sheriff's Association at the time. And what I did was I worked with John Jones and the association, and we got legislation passed. And the legislation, 53.1220.2, talks about transferring of certain incarcerated persons to the Immigration and Custom Enforcement. And basically what it did was it granted us the authority to release someone up to 5 days prior to their release date. So ICE can come get them.
So if they were supposed to get out on November 20th, ICE could come get them between the 15th and the 20th.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
So that was a happy medium to say, listen, we hear you. You're interested in this person. You can come get them, but I can't hold them beyond
past their date.
Their date. And the sheriff in Henrico at the time, he had gotten sued for holding someone beyond their release date. And that was in federal court. That wasn't in state court. And the court held that he was in violation.
So now are the sheriffs still following that same law?
I don't know what.
We don't know what everybody else is doing. Are you still following that same law?
I will tell you that we make notification, and we tell them they got the 5-day window, and they can come pick them up. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. This year I had 4 total from the beginning of the year till now. One was released to ICE because they got a judicial warrant for that person. One was released to the other jurisdiction, and 2 are still in my custody. So a lot of sheriffs are holding them for 48 hours beyond
their date to get out.
And we will not do that.
Elizabeth, what is the reasoning behind people being picked up as they're at court? Has that happened to you, where one of your clients, perhaps, or some other clients that are there for their asylum check-in, for example, and then they become detainees by ICE?
Fortunately, it has not happened to one of my own clients, but I have personally seen ICE agents at the immigration courts where I argue. I have seen them personally at least twice, and colleagues have seen them as well. And what is happening is a lot of the folks that they're picking up are not represented, of course, and they go to their court hearing. The opposing counsel, meaning the attorney for the Department of Homeland Security, dismisses their case. Normally, when you hear that, you think, oh, this is good. My case is dismissed. I don't have to come back to court anymore. And again, people are not representing themselves, often not speaking the hearing is not happening in their own language. And so they don't know what to say. The case is dismissed. They walk out and ICE is there to arrest them, saying, well, you have no pending case anymore because the DHS attorney just dismissed it.
Okay, I see.
And so now we're going to detain you and try to deport you. It is a level of coordination between between DHS attorneys and ICE enforcement officers that I have never seen in my career. I never thought I would see ICE agents at immigration court arresting people, because people showing up to court are necessarily trying to do the right thing. They are in a process. They are pursuing a claim, which is their both statutory right and constitutional right. So this is sort of beyond what I had imagined, and I read all the immigration chapters of Project 2025. I knew it was going to be bad, but to see it happen with our own eyes is extraordinary, and it is a enormous deviation from any past administration in the 21st century.
Patricia, you wanted to add to that?
No, I have several members of the community that have come with those issues, and we had to kind of go back and explore the answers. And right now, they're staying under the radar because the problem is, Barbara, is that there's no other solutions for them. There's no immigration changes since, I believe, to the law since 1964. So even these people that are trying to do the right thing, they can't do the right thing because there's not a process. That right now it is what it is, and we're going to use it as advantage of what we have.
But that's such a conundrum because if you don't go for your asylum hearing, then you, like as you said, Elizabeth, you can your case could be dismissed. But if you do go, they may be there to take you.
Right. And there's something very important that you might want to illustrate. I want to illustrate here is how these two different things work. In this, the IRS and the immigration process. Because if I was an undocumented person in this country and I wanted to open a business, I can go get an ITIN number and open a business and pay the taxes and do everything, which is millions of people in this country. As it's projected that the Latino and Hispanic community is going to contribute $4.0 trillion in 2025 to the economy. So imagine that. And there's all this entrepreneurship. But they can go and do that. They can have an ITIN number in Virginia now. With the ITIN number, you can get a driver license, and you can possibly apply for a house loan and get into the evolving economy in the United States. But it doesn't mean that you have residency or citizenship. You still.
So even though you're becoming a community person, you're contributing, you're doing the right things.
If I'm at the grocery store and I'm paying my groceries, and the next person next to me is paying my groceries, and is, as I described, this undocumented person, then we're the same. We're paying the same amount of taxes into the economy. So there's two different things, and I understand, how they're so different, but so criminalized.
Absolutely. If you're just joining us, we're talking about the real-life impact of ICE and the immigration issue in Virginia with Patricia Bracknell, CEO of the Chamber for Hispanic Progress, Newport News Sheriff Gabriel Morgan, and immigration attorney Elizabeth I knew I was going to mess it up, Elizabeth Schmelzel, with the Legal Aid Justice Center. 757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Shay joins us from Raleigh, North Carolina. Hi, Shay. You're on the air.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. There's something, and just so the audience knows, I happen to know Shay, and you were sharing with me an experience that you had with you and your husband at a home improvement store.
Correct. I just moved here from Phoenix, Arizona, so I had never really experienced anything like this. But my husband and I were walking into the Home Depot, and my husband happens to be of a different race, and they looked at me directly, and they stopped me, and they gave me a flyer, and they were just talking to me about knowing what my rights and stuff were. So on one hand, I was shocked because I had never been specifically profiled and sought out. And on the other hand, I was like, wow, I've never been profiled, specifically sought out. So it made me think, and it's a part of a whole different conversation now that maybe I was oblivious to what's going on. I'm not ignorant to it, but I also need to be aware so I can protect myself.
So Shay, are you of Latino descent? Are you Latino?
I am. I'm mixed. I'm Native American half and half Hispanic, but I look the majority Hispanic. So yes, people assume I'm Hispanic all the time. They speak Spanish to me and everything, but it's not my whole story. So that's kind of why I don't hyper focus on it. But because I look specifically Mexican, I do get that a lot. So I should be more aware.
And your husband is African American, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Yes. So, and they did not give him the flyer. They only gave it to you.
We actually, correct. We left and we came back, and himself and a Caucasian male were walking in a separate time, and they didn't even look at him twice. They just kept walking. So it was only when I specifically walked in with him. But like I said, I had never experienced it before, but it was a conversation to start having, that I need to be aware of.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Shay, for calling and sharing your story with us. We appreciate that. Patricia, you said the same thing happened to you?
Well, it happens to me all the time when I'm, I live in the city of Norfolk, and that's where ICE, the ICE office is, the central ICE office, and I park sometimes on Granby all the time because I go and do things. And the other day I was just parking, and I saw these agents coming out, and they were just looking at me like, I don't know.
How does that make you feel?
well, I like to fight. So
Yes.
I wanted,
You
bring it on.
wanted to engage with
yeah.
them.
Oh, I so did, but I wasn't going to initiate anything. But if they wanted to come and speak with me, they would have been well received.
Barbara, you just made a point, and you said, you asked Patricia, how did that make you feel? Yeah. As a black man, when I'm in uniform, you see me and you see me as law enforcement.
Right.
When I take off this uniform, for many years, we lived with that fear.
Yeah.
We lived with that fear about being profiled. And it rocks me to my core when I see some of what is going on today, because I thought we were better than this. I thought as a country we had moved beyond where we are now. And I can tell you about personal incidences occurred in my life, and it sticks with me. So every time I see a level of injustice to any degree, but particularly to this degree, and it's underwritten by the country, by the administration, I say, wait a minute, because throughout my life, America has not lived up to the promise. She has continued to march in that direction. But I always had faith that, albeit slow sometime, the federal government would step in. Little Rock, right? Mm-hmm. The 64, 65 civil rights case, the Board of Education, all these things, the federal government, slow, but
eventually they did.
They came in. Now, I have no confidence that they will do the right thing.
Because that's one of the questions I wanted to ask each of you. Does this feel different? Because Sheriff Morgan, you talk about, because from a black male perspective and an African American period, and having, like you said, the government step in, things to slowly change. Patricia, do you think that ultimately this will change
under this administration? Or change in the perspective of getting better for the Latino Hispanic communities. Mm-hmm. I don't have any faith. I didn't think that the Constitution can be rigged or misused like it has been. So having that conversation, Barbara, I think what I see in my community, the communities that I serve in Hampton Roads, things are getting worse every day. So I don't think it's going to change. I think that in order to change, the first thing that I should have said to you is thank you for opening this space to me, because we always talk about this information in the Latino and in Hispanic communities, and in Spanish, but we have never been invited to put a perspective out there what the community is going through. So I think it's very important that I'm here and that you understand from a perspective the criminalization of my community is in modern history the invasion of our country. That doesn't feel the same as last year.
As last time. Elizabeth, what about you? Do you think things will change?
Under the current administration, no, and I think here's where I worry about the future as well. We are seeing an incredible expansion of executive power. Attempts, for example, to change the Constitution through executive order. Mm-hmm. When the president said, in an executive order, I'm going to take away birthright citizenship. That is extraordinary. We have a process for changing the Constitution, and the Constitution plus 2 Supreme Court decisions are explicitly clear that someone who is born here is a citizen. Mm-hmm. And this president believes he can change that with the stroke of a pen. That is fundamental. That is a fundamental departure from the way our democracy was conceived and built, with all of its flaws, like Sheriff Morgan said, with all of its missteps. We had been oriented toward a direction that was not that. That was not kingship. That was not unbelievable amounts of executive power in the hands of one person. Now, so far, that birthright citizenship move has been stopped by the court. But other things haven't. And I am surprised to see the continued expansion of executive power. And the concern that I have there is that does not end when the president changes. So maybe the president will be a different person, but if they have the same ideas, the same goals as what we're seeing now, then why would that change if they are structurally empowered to do the same thing?
757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Andrew joins us from D.C. Hi, Andrew. You're on the air.
Hi. I just wanted to ask, because Elizabeth was sharing just about how ICE is working with attorneys to drop cases and trap them. So with all these strategies and rules ever changing, is there anything we can do as like a concerned citizen to help fight injustice against these immigrants?
Thank you for that call, Andrew. Elizabeth, and then I'll come to you, Sheriff Morgan.
Thank you so much. So first of all, I think accessing accurate information, like the kind of information that Barbara is putting out right now, is really important. Like we said at the beginning, people don't even use the right words when we talk about immigration. So educating ourselves, listening to programs like this. Second, with the increase in detention, there is a massive need for bond funds. Immigration detention is different than criminal detention. It's when you get a bond fund set, you don't pay 10%, you pay the whole thing. So the statute, as a minimum, requires people to pay $1,500 if they win their bond case. That can be much higher, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $18,000, $25,000. Every single person I represent is low income. That's why they qualify for our services. We are free. And my clients almost never can afford to pay their own bonds. So there are national bond funds where ordinary people all across the country can give, just donate online. And I'm happy to pull up that web address here in just a moment, Barbara. And I can share
that would
with
be
you.
great. I was going to ask you where should they go if they'd like to participate in that. Well, and Sheriff Morgan, you wanted to respond about that?
Yes, I think one of the things that we need to do is we need to stand up. When I say stand up, we need to take a stand. A lot of people, and I think this administration is operating from a position of trying to instill fear. And if enough good people stand up, reach out to the Latino community and let them know you're an ally. There's a lot of discussion out there about, this doesn't concern us and those kind of things. However, this does concern us because you may be next. The other thing, too, is the vote. Organize people to get out and vote. Voting, elections have consequences. This is a prime example. And if you want to preserve this democracy, the way you do it is you exercise your right to vote and you ensure others do the same thing.
Let's go to the phone lines. I believe we have the former Norfolk police chief on the line. Is that you, Larry?
Larry Boone.
Well, does it sound like me?
Yes, it does. How are you?
I am outstanding. I happen to be in Hampton Roads, and I heard this, and I thought I'd add my 2 cents. I want to commend Sheriff Morgan for being brave. He won't say it, but I know from taking a position, sometimes you're by yourself, and this is an important position, so I commend him for speaking out towards this. I do want to know if law enforcement is working with our local sheriff's departments, because typically the police are the first responders to folks that may have a status of being an immigrant or not. Mm-hmm. I know in Illinois, ICE is everywhere. And I've been very clear. We will not support immigration enforcement. We will enforce the law. And, of course, we would do that with anyone. So
yeah, gotcha.
That's my question.
Thank you so much. I'm going to let Sheriff Morgan respond to you. And thanks so much for calling in. It's good to hear your voice.
Larry, it's great to hear your voice, man. And thank you for those kind words. Here, at least in Newport News, Hampton, Norfolk, police are not enforcing immigration laws. They, as I said earlier, we've worked very hard to earn the trust of the Latino community, all our immigrant communities, and all our communities. And one of the things that we are standing firm on is it doesn't matter whether you're illegal or legal. If you commit a crime against our community, we are going to arrest you.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. But when it comes to the immigration laws, you got a student at ODU that overstayed their visa. Right. That's not my concern. They're not affecting my community. It may be a federal issue, and it's their concern. They want us to help them, but I haven't seen anyone from the federal government come to help me to execute my daily duties. So, to Larry's question, no, pretty much,
you're enforcing the laws of Virginia
correct.
and of the jurisdiction in
Correct.
which you're in.
So,
Got you. Go ahead,
Barbara,
Patricia.
let me tell you how that is affecting the community, okay? Because of the fear and the trauma that we're going through. I'm receiving a lot of calls of spouses that are being abused at home. And I'm dealing with the case right now, and they're afraid because they're in their immigration process, and that spouse that is physically abusing them says, if you call them, I'm going to call ICE on you.
Oh, so if you call, so they're afraid to even call the police to get help.
So working with organizations that can help them get out from it. We're searching all the assistance that we can, but I do want to get back to the other question.
Before you do that, Patricia, let me say something from a law enforcement standpoint. This is another thing. The immigrant community, because of their fear of law enforcement from their country sometimes, and also because of their undocumented status here, will not come out to the police. And they have been victims of crime that goes 100%. Unreported. Yeah. And one of the reasons we've made such outreach to them is to let them know, we don't care about your status. We do care if you're a victim of crime or you're being victimized. And we will come and help you regardless, and we're not going to just turn you in just because you're undocumented, because it's important for their safety, and that goes to what Patricia just alluded to. And it's taken a long time. Trust takes a long time to build.
Yeah, and it's not just that. We work with a lot of the police departments, Barbara, but I want the public to understand that they're not alone. They're not alone. If we can get involved, we can help, we will get involved, and we will help. Okay,
and I'm going to let you tell people how they can reach you in just a little bit. But I wanted to ask you, Larry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry. Gabe.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about the ICE agents who wear masks? I mean, from a law enforcement
I'm going to tell you right now, my folks are not allowed to wear masks. Anything that we're going to do is going to be above board. It's going to be, transparent. Mm-hmm. For me, if you're afraid of for your safety, what about the people that you're dealing with? For us, we deal with people every day. And, we arrest some pretty bad folks. We don't wear masks. And, we get threats every day. And if you're afraid to show your face, it begs a question for me.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's talk to Margaret in Gloucester. Hi, Margaret. You're on the air.
Hi. I don't want to be melodramatic, but I just want to say my father and my uncle fought in World War II against Nazis and against this kind of thing. And I feel like what we're having, like the Gestapo, come after people who, many of whom are citizens, and just grabbing them and putting them in detention. And I am not Hispanic nor ethnic, but I feel like this is an atrocity. And I've let my congressmen know and my senators, and I'm hoping we can do something. This is not right.
Thank you, Margaret, for the call. We really appreciate that. Elizabeth, I want to ask you, for someone who is arrested by ICE, what do they need to do? I mean, who do they call first? Is it you? Is it their family? I mean, what do they do?
Yeah, it's a great question. If they have an attorney, they need to call that attorney. Immigration detention centers are also supposed to be handing out lists of legal service organizations inside those facilities. The problem is a lot of attorneys doing this work are not free, and the number of attorneys who are free is extremely low, particularly for people who find themselves in detention. So my organization, Legal Aid Justice Center, we're big. We have about 100 people, but our immigration team is about 10. And of the 10 of us, 5 of us are attorneys. And we're one of the only group of 5 free attorneys in the entire state of Virginia.
Wow.
So the queue for our services is extraordinary. And that means oftentimes people are facing a very complex deportation process in a language that is not their own, in a country whose laws they may not understand by themselves. I also want to say to the previous caller, I actually think that the parallels with World War II are historically accurate, and here's why. The entire asylum system that we have was born out of World War II. So the Refugee Convention was a response to the Holocaust. The Allied powers got together, European nations got together. We said, we never want to send people back to a place where they will be sent to their death. That was our decision as an international community. And we wrote an international refugee convention that is almost exactly what our asylum statute says. So this exists because there was a time when the international community got together and said never again. And the question is, are we going to keep honoring that? This was about the protections that Jewish people needed and didn't get. And we said, we want to make sure no other group goes through something so horrific again. So this is deeply rooted in what happened in Europe to a minority that was brutalized. And can we honor that, and can we keep it moving forward, I think is the question right now.
Let me piggyback on that
Sure.
for real. I spent more than 2 decades in the military. And what we're doing to the folks that assisted us while we spent more than 2 decades in the Middle East, we allowed them to come to this country.
We're talking about the interpreters.
The interpreters, and we allowed them to come here under protection because they gave up their life to assist us in our cause. When we pulled out, we allowed them to come because it meant certain death for them if they stayed. We brought them here, and now arbitrarily, we just saying, no, now you have to go back. So this resonates with me when you say send them to certain death. Yeah. These are folks that, and once I don't care who you are. If you were in the foxhole with me, you're my brother. I owe you. I owe you my life because I get to live in this country now and do the things that I do because you fought with me. And for us now to tell them, nah, you need to go back home. We don't value what you did.
They're just another group being affected in the process. Yeah.
Right. And it's arbitrary. It's capricious.
So I want to ask this question, and we're almost out of time. We got 4 minutes left. So
sorry.
Keep it. But what do you say to people who say, I'm not Latino, I'm not Hispanic, it doesn't matter to me?
Yeah.
What's your response to that, Patricia?
Well, my response to that is, we all have, I'm a woman of faith, Barbara, so I go to church. And every church is different, but every church there is a Christian church has Christ among us, correct? So what I would say to them is create a ministry in your church that can help Latino communities, because we're in a dire need of mental health services, clothing, anything that you can do to assist us. Provide that service for those that are being affected, mostly in the realm of providing any kind of help. So the church, I would say, what would Jesus do?
Okay.
You know?
And how do people reach you?
My phone number is 757-547-6771. My organization is the Chamber for Hispanic Progress, and we are in social media and our own website, where you have people all over the country that reach in to us for resources. Please feel free. We're here to support.
Thank you so much, Patricia Bracknell. Elizabeth, you got like 1 minute.
I would say, just Barbara, as a reminder of what I mentioned earlier, folks can contribute to bond funds at communityjusticeexchange.org. That's all one word. And we're all in this. We're all in this together. Black, white, whatever our ethnic background is. This is about who we want to be in this nation.
Okay, and that's communityjusticeexchange.org. Correct? Okay. Thank you. Elizabeth Schmelzel, thank you so much for joining us. Sheriff Morgan, you have the last minute.
The only thing I say is we're better than this, America. We can have secure borders. We can have a orderly immigration process, and we can do this with dignity, and we can do this in within the confines of the Constitution of America, and respecting other people's rights.
Absolutely. And you do want people, if they need your help, to reach out and to call out.
Absolutely.
Okay. That is it. Patricia, give us your email. Your website one more time.
Chamber for Hispanic Progress. And we are, I can send the link over so to be put on the air.
It is called the Chamber for
Hispanic
Progress.
Yes.
Okay, and if you want to make a donation to help with the bonding issue, it is communityjusticeexchange.org, communityjusticeexchange.org. And is there anything special that's going on with the Sheriff's Department that you want us to know about very quickly?
We got a car show that's coming up, and the car show supports Project Lifesaver, where we give out monitoring bracelets for those people suffering from dementia and other type of problems. And that will be in the beginning of September. Please go to our website and support us where you can.
Who knew that sheriffs did all that too? Thank you so much, Sheriff Gabe Morgan. Thank you all very much. And audience, our goal here at Another View is to keep you informed about issues that affect our community. So we thank you for spending the past hour with us. Now you can listen to this show again at whro.org/anotherview, or on Spotify, or wherever you go for your podcast listening pleasure. Next week on Another View, cardiologist Dr. Keith Newby. He hasn't been around in a little while, but he will be back, and we will be talking about the new imaging center in Portsmouth. Our theme music is an original composition created especially for Another View by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Jordan Christie is our audio engineer, and Dr. Barry Graham answered our phones. My name is Barbara Ham Lee. Have a fantastic weekend, everyone. And let's get together again next Thursday at noon for Another View.
Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, carrying out your charitable wishes forever, whether it's helping shelter animals, feeding the homeless, enhancing the arts, or supporting students. Learn more at leaveabequest.org.